Programming Rainbow. In this video, we will continue on the beginner's guide to SDL2 in Haskell language. If you're just starting out with this video, you can go to github.com, Programming Rainbow, beginner's guide to SDL2 in Haskell. You can git clone that repository, move inside of it, and you can open it up with whatever editor that you're using. I'm using NeoVim. So it's going to look like this. These are all folders containing the code from each one of the videos. So since this is the 8th video, we are going to be starting with the code we left off with in the 7th video. But if you just clone this directory inside of this folder here, this directory, the main.hs is actually the final one from 8. You'll want to take main.hs from video 7 and move it up here. And these old ones are just another version where I was using IORef instead of state tmonad. I just left the code there. Okay, so this is the 8th video. We are continuing on the code from the 7th video, so this is what it looks like. And what we did in the 7th video was make the sprite, let it move around. So let's just show that. Okay, so we have Haskell bouncing around the screen. That's a true type font. We can change the background color with space, and we can move this SDL logo around the screen. We can do it with both the arrow keys and the ASWD keys. We also have an icon loaded that I can't show you. I'm in Xmonad. I don't have window icons, but it is loaded for people who are on there. And my title is set there. In this video, we're going to be adding music and sound effects. And before I start with this, I just want to point out that I have not been able to get music to work in a satisfactory way in Haskell. And I've played with Haskell on and off for a year through different versions. And I believe it's a bug, but it could just be the way that I'm attempting to do it. But I really think it's a bug. So if you know Haskell, if you can answer this question, or if you're having the same problem, I did set a bug report for this that I have not been able to get Haskell. I actually asked a similar question on Stack Overflow maybe a year or more ago, and I got the answer shut down by a JavaScript person. I didn't know anything about Haskell, I believe. So this is an issue that I have not been able to resolve. So I can't show you how to get perfect music because it's not working perfectly for me. But if you know the answer, please share it so that I will know and everybody else will know too. But we will get music working. It's just a little bit flaky. It's got issues. We are going to be using a new module. It's going to be SDL2 Mixer. So we're going to bring this in. This is the page that we land on. I already have it opened here. And just like the other ones, we're going to use an initialize function. And you don't have to, but I'm using it because I specifically want to make sure that the format of music that I want to use is available. So these initialize functions in several of these modules aren't strictly required. Like the image module, I don't believe you need to initialize it. But if you want to make sure that your capability for the format of image that you're loading is available, it is good. And the same thing with this music. So I'm using initialize. It's not strictly required, but I want to make sure that the music, say the OGG file, if I'm loading OGG files, that capability is available. So we're going to use this function. It's just like what we've done before, but this one has this init flag. Down here we can see the different flags. There's the MP3 one, an OGG one, a FLAC, and a mod. This is a foldable type, so this is type constrained by foldable. That means we can put these flags if we want more than one or just one. We're going to put them in a list or something that's foldable, but I'm just going to use a list. I'm going to use this init OGG. I'm going to put it in a list. You could also put it in a tuple, I think, but I'm just going to use a list. And there's also a quit down here. So we've kind of seen this before, so I'm just going to go ahead and start implementing it. And again, I just want to show one more time that we do have in package.yaml. This is already in here for you. If you're making your own project, you will need to add this. And this is a 1.2.00. And where I'm getting this from is right up here in package.haskell.org packages /SDL2 TAC Mixer. And the current version is 1.2.0.0. Okay, that's where I'm getting that from. In initial init SDL function right here, I'm just going to go down to the last one that I initialized, which was font, and we're going to add a new one in here. So I'm going to do the same thing, use safe run. Oh, we did forget, sorry, I do need to qualify import here. Import qualified, I didn't spell it right, SDL, and this one's going to be Mixer. The function is going to be SDL Mixer initialize. And again, we're taking in a list because that's foldable, so that's the one I'm using. I'm not sure what other ones are available. Just like up here with this SDL Image.InitPNG, same thing. Yeah, I'm also going to put this in parentheses since this whole action needs to be sent into safe run. SDL Mixer init, and it's going to be aug that I'm using. So I'll say error initializing SDL2 Mixer. And the quit is the same. It's going to be SDL Mixer quit. So I'm going to add that. So that kind of brings the module online and makes sure that we have aug available, because that's the sound type that I'm going to be loading. Let me just show you that over here. I have two folders here. We have a sound folder that has Haskell and SDL aug files, and we also have in music. I have 3 versions of the same audio, because when I said I have a problem with the audio in Haskell, it's not with the sound effects, it's actually just with the music. So I just used Audacity to mix down this 3 different times. So I have an aug version, a WAV version, and an MP3 version. But I've had issues with all versions of all file types of music in Haskell. Sometimes one works and the other one doesn't work. It seems to be universally flaky no matter what you use. So now that we have SDL Mixer online, we actually also need to open an audio. So there's this with audio here. I actually am not familiar with this one and I don't use it. I use open audio and close audio. So it does say if you're using with audio, you don't need to do the close audio. If you do open audio, use this option. It's the same as the other one, except you need to tell it when to close. And I'm perfectly happy to do that because that's how I would normally do it with SDL anyway. So this is the one I'm going to use. So this is kind of opening up our audio kind of device, setting it up for us. And we need a couple of things here. One is this audio here, which is a configuration. And the other one is a chunk size. Let's just look at SDL, the C header file. The reason why I'm looking at this is because SDL is actually implemented in C. The Haskell is just a binding to it. These are the items that are in the configuration, that audio configuration. These are the defaults as well. So the default frequency is going to be 44/100. The default format is this audio signed 16-bit sys. And the default channels is 2. So when they say audio and there's a default audio, it's actually this, except it's not 44/100 actually. They use 22/050, I think. We'll see that in a second here. Also, these mix channels are different. There's 8 of them. We're going to swing around to this later, but this is about when you're playing sound effects. How many simultaneous sound effects can you play at one time? Right now, this is what we need for our default, and we also need chunk size. So let's just go back to here. So this audio right here, there is a default. We click on it. This is just a record, and it's got an int for the sample frequency, and then it's at the format and the mono or stereo. There is a default one. Here's an implementation of the config. It's already a defined record with those fields implemented. And they're using the 22/050, which I'm not sure why they're doing that. The only reference I found to this is for the ECMAScript binding for SDL. I'm not sure why they would be doing that though. But this one is the same as the default SDL that I use in every other project. And stereo is also the same. So what I want to do is change this one field. So I'm going to take this default and I'm going to modify the one field that is right here, the audio frequency field. We're just going to adjust this one to make it 44/100. The other thing that we need, so we need 2 things when we open audio, is this chunk size. The chunk size is the size of each mixed sample. the smaller we make this, the less lag there is in audio. But if you make it too small, your hardware may not have enough time to process it, and you get clipping and you get this crackling sound in your audio. So I'm going to use 1024. You could try shrinking it down, or you can make it bigger. But I found if I use 2048 that I can detect lag in the audio. 1024 for the games that we do, it's not really going to matter. If you make the number bigger, you can detect a lag. If you make it too small, you will get crackling sound. So I'm going to go with a kind of a safe default, which is 1024 for this. Okay, so we need those two things, but we need to modify the default audio. I'm going to use the default audio, but then make like my own configuration version of it. Okay, so we're going to do that first. So up here, kind of the same way that we did with my window config, I'm going to do the same thing for the audio. So I'll call it my audio config. And this is going to be SDL Mixer, and it was just called audio. So I'm going to do very much the same thing I did up here. All I'm doing is I'm going to use the record update syntax to use the default and just change one of the fields while I'm creating my own. So the default is going to be SDL Mixer default audio. Let's just look at that again. This is the one I'm talking about. And I just want to change that one field, which is the frequency. Okay, so I'm going to set this one to 44,100. And this really is the SDL default. And you can set it to 4,800 or whatever you want, but by default, just SDL uses 44,100. So I'm just setting that. Okay, so we have our updated audio config, or our own version of the audio config with this different frequency. So we need to open audio now. It's going to be an initialize right after we've done the initialize here of the audio. So this one's going to be SDL Mixer, and it's open audio. And we need two things. We need the audio configuration, what we've just made, the my default audio. And we also need the chunk size that I said I'm just going to use 1024. But again, you can choose a different one. So I didn't pull it out into its own variable, but I'm just going to do that because maybe it's best practice. So you can just change it whenever you want. So I'll go chunk size or something like that. And I think it's just an int. I believe it's just an int. I'm just putting it here so we don't have a magic number in the code. Uh, 1024. And again, if you want to try different numbers, it's easy just to modify it right there. And we could pull this one out too, but it's already kind of, this is already like our configuration. So I'm not really going to count this as a magic number, but you could do that too. You could pull it out as well. But I'm kind of counting this as these together. I don't have to search through the code to find them. Okay, so initialize. So we need the my default, my audio config is what I called it. Maybe I should have called it my default audio. That's fine. So this one's chunk size. And that should be the two things we need there. And then we can say error opening audio. And there is the close audio. So it's going to be add clean SDL Mixer. And this one will be close audio. So we're just adding that to our list of actions to be used whenever whatever shutdown sequence happens. We have to use both of these to bring the audio kind of online to actually start using it now. Nothing will happen now. I could try to run it. It looks okay now, so let's just move on to actually loading audio. So there's two different types of audio. There is chunks and music, two data types, and the way that we load them is with load. And in SDL, you would actually have load muse and load chunk, but in Haskell, they've put both of them together. Haskell figures it out based on what type that you set its loading into. We're going to use load, and it can be a chunk or music. So chunk is a sound effect. It's a short played sound that you can play multiple. You can play up to 8 because that's what we have the 8 channels available. That doesn't mean left and right channel. That means 8 simultaneous sound channels. So we can play 8 chunks at one time, and we can play 1 music. The music is something that you could just play all the time, and the chunk is a sound effect. So we're going to be using both of these. And the music is the one that I said I had the issues with. The chunks I haven't had any issues with. Okay, so we have a load right here, the load function. And this is just going to need the path, and it's going to return one of those two, either a chunk or a music, depending on what type you've set it to save it as. And we have a free as well, and that free works for either one of those. So we have loadable music or loadable chunk. So I have these two sound effects, Haskell and SDL. So I'm going to add them to game data. Game sound, I think. That's probably how I labeled it. And this one's going to be SDL Mixer chunk. SDL Mixer, and this is so chunk. So I'm just going to call the music because there's only one of them. And this will be SDL Mixer music. Okay, so these are the two sound effects that we're going to load, and one of these will be the music. And this is just going to be in game data because it's not going to change. We're not going to be doing initialize. We're going to be doing it in load media. And it's complaining because we have these 3 new fields that we need to populate. I'm going to do it after this modify because this modify really is about the game state, and it has to do with these 2 recs right here. And this is all done. So I'm just going to put them after it. Because what we're doing is going into the game data, not the game state. We're not doing anything more with the game state. Let's say the first one is sound Haskell. I'm not sure if this is the way I named it before. Haskell sound, SDL sound. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So we can change that. So I'm just flipping them. So this will be Haskell sound now. And we're going to use the safe run. So the loading is pretty simple. It's just load and then the file path, which is just a string. So we go SDL Mixer load. And now we need the path, and I'm going to use the relative path. For the sound effect, it's in sounds, which is over here in sounds. And here's Haskell right here. Okay, so that is aug. So error loading chunk. I think that's good. This may clear up when I save it down here. But let's find out. Yeah. Now, because it didn't know what type it was, the chunk or the music. But once it's being put in here, it understands that it is a chunk because that's what we declared it as of above. And the way that we free a chunk is just with free. And the chunk is Haskell sound. Okay, so this is going to be the same for the music as well and the other chunks. So I'm just going to yank this right here, put it there, and one more time. And just so it stops complaining, change this to music. And this one's going to be SDL sound. Oh, not like that. I'll just put it like that. So this is SDL. And this is still a chunk. And we need to free that SDL sound. And music, this one is going to be, now I'm going to use the OGG one first. So this is a free software song. So if you know Richard Stallman, this is his song. This is the 8-bit version of it. So I'm going to put it here. And this one is not chunk, this is music. And we'll call it music. So down here we need to add the game, SDL sound, SDL sound, and game music equals music. Okay, so no complaints now, because if I would have saved it before putting those in, we would have got a bunch of complaints here. So we've loaded 2 different chunks and 1 music. And they are in the return now. So I'm going to show the, I'm going to play a music chunk first. And normally this wouldn't really matter if we were in any other language, but in Haskell, it's going to cause it to crash the program when we move past the 8 channels that are available for the sound effect. So then we're going to make a better way to do it. So I'm just going to show the simple way first. So I'm going to use this play right here. And it says play a channel once using the first available channel. So what's going on here, again, we have like 8 channels that we can play simultaneously. And I don't want to keep track of them. I don't really know what they are. Let's just say we have 0 through 7. And I play a sound effect. It goes on 0. I play another sound effect before that first one ends, and it goes on 2. Then I play a third sound effect, but the first one has ended. So now it's on channel 0. But what happens when it fills all of them up? Well, this doesn't really explain it. But what happens is it's going to throw an exception. So in C, it would just not play the sound. It would play until all the channels are full. And then if you try to play another sound simultaneously, it just skips that sound until there's one available again. Then it'll start playing sounds when you request them again. But in Haskell, this is actually going to throw an exception. So it's going to attempt to play on the channel. And when it finds no channel available to play on, it's going to crash the program. So we're going to see that. So this is going to be play. So this will be SDL Mixer play. And we'll give it a chunk. And I'm going to put it on the space bar. So we're going to need the sound right here in the handle event. We'll do the SDL sound. Because the Haskell is moving around the screen, so it should say Haskell and it bounces off the wall. Okay, so that's going to give us access to the sound. Where is this function at? Okay, it's right here. So we need to pull in a sound now. So I'm going to do the render and then SDL Mixer chunk. And we'll say SDL sound. I could just put it below it. SDL Mixer play. And this SDL sound. Okay, defined but not used. Because we need to pass this in now. Okay, so this should just work. I'm going to show it work and then I'm going to see what the crash looks like. So every time I press the space bar, it should say SDL. Whoops, it didn't work because we've messed something up. Does not exist. So it looks like I spelled something wrong. This is not in sounds, it's in music folder. So when I was copying and pasting those in load media, the music one is actually in a different folder. It's in the music folder. So right here, okay, I'm going to press spacebar. I'm hearing everything delayed, so I'm going to press it a couple times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, now I'm just going to hold it. Yeah, I'm going to hold it down because it's going to repeatedly press it. See, there we go. So it failed. And did we run safe run on this? I'm not quite sure. No, so we weren't even doing a safe run on this or anything. So when this crashed, it actually didn't shut down our program correctly because it should have said all clean and then the message. So this is just it straight up crashing the program. And just because there was no free channels available, it crashed. So we need to deal with this. We don't want it to do this. So what I'm going to do is check to make sure that there is a channel available and then play it on that channel. So right here, this is my little play chunk function right here. The first thing that we need to find out is there an available channel? So there is a function get available. And this is, you can put your sound effects in groups or your channels in groups. We'll look at that in a second. But the default group is just all of them. So I'm saying, is there any available channel? And this will actually return a channel, or it returns a maybe. So it could be just 5, like channel 5, just 5, or it could be nothing. So on this, we can run a case on it. And if it's just a channel, then we can do a play on. We could still do play, but if we already know the channel that we want to play on, we can use play on, which is another function that plays on a specific channel. And we can play on that channel. This is how many times we want it to play, I believe. We'll look it up in a second. And this is the chunk that we want to play, which I'm just passing in whatever the sound effects is. I'm just calling it chunk when I pass it in. And if it's nothing, it's just nothing. So this is kind of a safe way. Basically, we're saying, do we have an available channel? What is that channel? And then we can play on that channel. So we're using this get available. We need to look up about this default group and the play on. This gets the first inactive non-playing channel within a group. Okay. If you're using default group, we'll give you the first available inactive channel out of all existing. So that's what we're doing. We're using default group with this. So that's the group here. So we're going to call this function with this group, and it's going to return a maybe channel. That's where we're getting that channel back. And now instead of play, we can use play on. So play on takes the channel, so we can pass in the channel, the maybe channel, but we'll pass it in as a channel. How many times do we want the sound to play? We only want it to play one time. The actual sound, the chunk. And this is going to return a channel as well. We don't actually care about this, so I'm actually going to just call this with like void. I'm not sure, is that what I did in my code here? The reason why I'm using void here is because this is going to return the channel that I'm playing on. But I don't care because I already know it's this channel. So it's not interesting to me and I don't need to save it and hold it anywhere. I already know it's playing. If it didn't play on this channel, it would have crashed the program. I've already checked to make sure the channel's available. So it is playing on this channel. I don't need to know the channel again. So I'm just calling void on this. So this is what we're doing. So let's set this up. So here's the set renderer that I'm going to use this in. So I'm going to put it above it. It doesn't need to be above it, but just in my head, I like it that way. I think this is just called play chunk is what I called it. And we need an SDL Mixer chunk. So we have the chunk coming in. I'm just going to call it chunk. The first thing we need is the maybe channel. I'm going to call it maybe channel. And it was get available. Get available. But we need to tell it the group we want. I'm going to use that default group. So that's SDL Mixer default group. So that's basically saying it's going to give me a maybe channel of all the channels I have available to me, which should just be 8 channels. I'm going to run a case on this maybe channel. If we do have a channel, this is going to be a just. And I'm just going to call it channel. So just channel, and now we need to use play on instead of play because we want to play it on a specific channel. So this is SDL Mixer play on right here, and we need a channel. We need how many times and the chunk. So our channel is right here, not the maybe channel, but the actual channel here. We're going to use that. Our times is just going to be 1 time, and our chunk is going to go after that. And now this isn't really safe either, because if this fails, I'm not catching it and I'm not shutting it down. So this could be written better, but I think it's good enough. I haven't been able to make this fail, but it potentially could. Like I'm not checking for exception. This is returning, sorry. It's going to complain in a second. We'll see it. So when I do this, yeah, this is returning a channel. So, but we don't care about the channel. We don't want the channel. So I'm going to say void. And since we're using this void, we need to put it in parens. Because this, again, is returning a channel, which seems silly because we already know what channel it is. It's right here. This is the channel. Okay, so let's use this. So this is play chunk, and we still need to pass in the chunk to it. So down here, instead of this one, we're just going to use what we created. Oh, come on now. There we go. I just needed to save it. It was looking at only the first part of it, and it was thinking it was an error, even though there was nothing wrong with it. Okay, so now let's try this, and I'm just going to hold down the space bar, and it's going to change colors a bunch of times, and it's going to keep playing the sound effect. And what should happen is it's going to play 8 really fast. They're going to be simultaneous, and then it's going to wait till there's a free one again before it starts filling it up again. So it's only going to play if one is available. That's the idea. Okay, so I'm just going to hold down space. Okay, it doesn't look like it's crashing. No issues. Because you might be playing a game and you have different sound effects happening. You have bullets, you have explosions. You could have all kinds of things. And you don't want your game to crash just because you don't have an available channel, and you can make really complicated ways of keeping track of your channels and everything else. But all we really want to do is, hey, if there's a channel available, I'd like to play the sound effect. If there's not a channel available, we'll just skip it until there is something available, and then the next sound effect will play. So that gives us a sound effect on when we press the space bar, it says SDL. I would also like to have it play, say Haskell when we bounce off the wall with our Haskell text. So in update text, whenever this bounces off the wall, I would like for it to say Haskell. So we are going to pass this in as well, but I believe I'm going to use a when down here. Let's just look at how I did it. So what this is saying is right here, I have the old X velocity and the new X velocity. I didn't call it old, but this is the old and this is the new coming out. I'm saying I want to know if it changed, if either one of these velocities changed. If it bounced off the right or left wall, my X velocity has changed. And if it bounced off the floor or the ceiling, my Y velocity has changed. If any of those velocities has actually changed, I want to play my sound effect. So that's basically it. It's just a when. When this is true, we're going to run this, which is just the play chunk with the Haskell sound. So we also need to pass in Haskell right here, the Haskell sound, this chunk, pretty much like what we just did in the last piece of code. Those two things are going to be the same. This is just a slightly different. We're using this when to make sure that these two are not the same or these two are not the same. That's why there's an or here. If either one of these ends up being true, that we've bounced off some kind of wall. So yeah, I'm going to do that into the update text. So we do need to change this. SDL Mixer chunk. And this is going to be the Haskell sound effect. The Haskell sound there. So when, and again, I'm checking to make sure that X velocity is not the same as new X velocity, sorry. If X velocity is different than new X velocity, then we've bounced. So I think that is the correct one. Not equal to. New X vel. And we're using a logical or because we also want to know it could be this one, or if the Y velocity is not equal. So we need to do the lift IO because the play chunk is in just an IO action context, where this update is in this state T game state IO context. So we do need to lift IO on this one. And we're calling that function, which is play chunk. And the chunk that we want to play is the Haskell sound. Gonna probably modify the way I've written it. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So now every time Haskell bounces off the wall, it should say Haskell. And again, we could have been pressing the space bar and then this bounces off a wall and we go over that 8 and it would crash on us. So now we're kind of protected from that. So I'm going to just try this now, and we'll let it bounce off the wall, see if we hear it. Looks like I've made a mistake though. Okay, so where I've called text update, I did not pass in I didn't pass it in down here. So we need to get the Haskell sound, game, data, And for text update, we need to pass that in. Okay, we'll just let it bounce off the wall a couple times.
Haskell. 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 Haskell.
Okay, I'm going to press this a couple times.
Haskell. Haskell. Haskell.
And now I'm just going to hold it down.
Haskell.
It looks good. Doesn't look like it's crashing. Now we see our all clean. Remember before when it did crash, we didn't get the all clean, so we weren't doing a safe run on it. And still we're not doing that. So if it still crashes, we're still not doing a safe run. So you could make it even better. Okay, so we have sound effects. So now let's deal with playing music. Playing music's pretty simple. I think it's just play music. Yeah, play music, number of times, and the music we want to play. So the times, there's a forever, I think. Forever right here. So we're going to do that. We're going to use the forever. So we need the forever and the music that we're playing. So we have our play music, we have our forever, and then we have our music chunk. We have an error message. It's wrapped in the safe run. This, I'm actually starting it to play before the game loop even starts. So this is happening in load media. Right at the bottom of load media, I am starting the music. So right down here, we've loaded the music. So I'm going to go a safe run. So safe run is going to be running this SDL Mixer play music. And we need the number of times. So that's going to be SDL Mixer forever. And the actual chunk that we want to play, which is just this music right here. So I'm just going to say error playing music. Now we kind of skipped something here. When we have these cleanup actions for cleaning up the chunks and cleaning up the music, but before you start cleaning up the music and the chunks, you want to make sure that they're not playing. So I actually want to make sure that the music is not playing and the chunks are not playing, like any of them, before I start cleaning up. So we've added these cleanup actions now right here because this happens in reverse order. So the next thing I want to put on the stack of cleanup actions here is stopping the music and stopping the sound effects before these actions start being run. So there's two things that we need to do. There is a halt channels. So we're going to say all channels. And then for music as well, it's just halt music, I think. So this one, we don't need to pass anything to it. We're just going to halt the music. Yeah. So let's do halt all channel. So these are just going to be add cleans. And I'm thinking about the order of this. Since I'm putting it last, that means it's going to happen first before the cleanup of the sound effects and stuff. Let's see. SDL Mixer halt, and then SDL Mixer all channels. That takes care of the sound effects, the chunk. Yeah. So now we need to make sure music, and this one is just halt music, I think. Which probably doesn't even need to be in those parens. So this is just so when it shuts down again, that music is halted, all channels are halted. Now we start cleaning up the music and the chunks. We're playing sound effects. Now we're playing music with safe run. Let's just make sure the music is playing. It looks like I have an error, so let's go track that error down. It's not up here. Oh, okay. It's done something here. Okay. Not sure why it did that. Okay, that's everything is good now. So we're just going to make sure the music works. Then we'll see about pausing it. And again, like I said, it may or may not be flaky. And you can try different ones here.
Haskell, 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 Haskell,
SDL,
Haskell, 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 Haskell.
Okay, it looks like everything is working fine. Again, because if it's flaky, I would like to use the pause where you can just pause music, but you may choose to instead stop and start the music. So I actually did two different codings for kind of muting the music. One way I just pause it and resume it. But again, if your music flakes out on you, it won't necessarily work correctly. And then another one I did is stopping the music and just starting the music. So I've done sort of two different code setups for this. The music was playing fine there, but like sometimes it'll just randomly stop, or it'll start glitch repeating, or it will just make artifact sounds. So again, if anybody knows the answer to that, that'd be super helpful. So I did set up two different ways of toggling the music. So the first one I've done here is just a very simple. There's basically three functions involved here. Paused music will return true or false if the music is paused currently or not paused. So if you're playing music, it's not paused, the paused music will say false. If you're playing music and it is paused, it'll say true. So for that, I'm just using a toggle. I'm saying if it's paused, just, resume it if it's paused, or pause it if it's not paused. So it's a very simple kind of toggle, but this only works if the music hasn't glitched and broken. And so the other one I've done here is to check not if the music is paused, but if it's playing. Now, this doesn't care if the music is paused or not. If the music's playing, even if it's paused, it's going to come back as true, even if it's paused. So on this one, we're doing the exact same thing. If the music is playing, we're just halting the music, which we already saw in our cleanup actions above, which just stops the music from playing. And if the music is not playing, we just do the safe run that we've already seen above where we started playing the music. That's the exact same from the load media, where we just tell it to play forever with the music. So let's do this one. And again, these functions are very similar. They're on the page here, but they're self-explanatory. They do exactly what they say on the tin. This is just returning a bool if the music is paused. And this one is just resuming paused music. And this is pausing music that's playing. So very simple. This is doing the same thing, returning a bool if it's playing. And we already know what halting the music is, and we already know what play music is, how many times you want it to play, and the music file itself. And we're doing it inside the safe run. Okay, so I'm just going to implement both of these because I'm going to be using them in handle events. So I've just put them right above. Toggle music is what I called it. So I don't think I put this in any special context. I think I just made this an IO. The first thing we need to know is the music paused? I'm just going to hold this in a variable. I'm just going to bind it to pause. And this is SDL Mixer paused with a D, music. If you don't use the D, then it's actually different. It's actually pausing the music, not seeing if it's paused. So now we can just do a simple if. We can say then. So if it is paused, we want to resume it. SDL Mixer, resume, music, else. Sorry, if it is paused, yeah, we're resuming. Yeah, that's fine. SDL Mixer, pause without the D, music. I think I've messed up the letters here. Okay, so I'm going to put this on the, normally I put it on the M key. So this one's going to be on the M key. The other version, I'm going to put it on the O key. And we don't need anything special for this at all. We do need to lift it because it's in the just an action. It's not in a state, game state IO. So I'm just going to add it down here. SDL keycode M. And we'll do a lift. And this is just toggle music. And we don't need to pass anything into it. And that should just work. Let's try it. Okay. Press M.
Haskell. 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 Haskell.
I think it's already actually messed up.
Haskell. Haskell.
Yeah. When I unpaused it, it actually stopped playing. So yeah, so that you can kind of see that the music actually failed because I did unpause it and initially started playing, but then it kind of broke. And it did not throw an exception. So it quietly failed. I'm running the music with safe run. So any exception being thrown from it should have shut down the program cleanly and printed out an error message, and it did not do that. So it is super flaky. So let's see the other way to do it. So we can just like manually start and stop the music instead of the resume and pause music. So this one's here. So I'll call this toggle music 2. We can just see real quick why. Where was it? Yeah, there's no state. Yeah. I spelled it wrong again. This one, we do need to pass the music into it. So I need to fix that above. Sorry, it's mixer music. So initially we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get a Boolean, and I'm just going to call it playing. And this is from playing music, I think. SDL Mixer playing music. So this is returning if music is playing. So if it is playing, we want to halt the music. So we'll do SDL Mixer halt music. See if I got my logic correct. It is playing. We want to halt it. Yes. Okay. So if it's not playing, we want to run safe run. We basically just want what we did up here, right here. this exact thing. So I'm just going to yank it. I don't even know if we need this do block like this. Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember why. We do have state, because safe run needs game state. So this does need to be in the state t game state, because it uses, safe run uses it, because it's got to unload all those actions. Yeah, so I think my code is slightly different. I didn't use the do. I don't think I used it. I'm not sure if I used it over here. Yeah, we don't need the do because there's only one thing going on in it. So yeah, so we do need to pass in this music. Everything else should be fine. So I'm going to put this on the O key. Code O, like on and off kind of deal. And this one's going to be toggle music 2, but we need to pass in the music to it. So that means we need to get music up here. Okay, no errors. Okay, let's try it out. So I'm going to try the pause and unpause a couple times.
Haskell, 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 Haskell.
Sounds like it's still working, so I'm going to try the O now.
Haskell, 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 Haskell.
I was trying to see if it would fail.
Haskell.
So this is O now. Now if I press M, nothing will happen
Haskell.
because the music is off. It's not
Haskell,
paused or anything.
Haskell.
So now if I press O,
Haskell.
it should play again.
Haskell. Haskell.
Okay. And with the O, we're always going to start
Haskell.
playing the music from the beginning.
Haskell. Haskell.
Okay.
Haskell.
So that's kind of it. Like I said, I just want to point out again, you may be frustrated because there's sound, or if somebody can answer this, this would be great. But I do have a bug report on this Haskell game, SDL2. I believe that is the correct place for this. If you know anything about why this is happening with the audio or with the music specifically, and I have this problem if it's a WAV file, if it's an MP3, or if it's an OGG. So yeah, I've had this this problem no matter what type it is. But sometimes if it is an OGG type and I switch to a WAV, it fixes it for that game. But in another game, the WAV won't work. So, and I'm always making sure that I'm using 44100 and I'm resampling it, and then there shouldn't be any issues. This is very specific to Haskell. It doesn't happen in any other SDL game that I have. I don't have any sound problems in any of them. And even if I'll show you another game. So this is a more complicated game. This is Yellow Snow in Haskell. So this may be running fine. I can't hear the audio, it's delayed. You know, but this is using delta time. And sometimes I can get the sound to work and sometimes I can't, but if I just run the frame rate really high, I can get it to crash on me. Kind of like what we saw before, but this is a different error. So right now I'm targeting 60 frames a second. So let me open it up again and I'll show you. I have two functions, one that times my game and a second independent function that gets the frame rate that I'm actually getting. So I have two separate functions. One, it targets the time that I want to get, and the other one keeps track of the frame rate I'm really getting. So if I press F, Down here I should have, so I'm getting 60 frames a second. And we can get up to about like 6,000 frames, 5,500 frames a second, I think. So if I push it up to, say, 3,000. So this is mean I want 3,000 frames a second. And this game is going to run at 3,000 frames a second. It's going to draw every frame at 3,000. My laptop only displays 50 hertz on my panel, so I'm not going to see 3,000 frames a second. But that's just the panel that I'm viewing it at. The GPU and everything else doesn't care about that. It's actually going at 3,000, you know. So it is a real 3,000, even though I don't see it. And you might be watching this at 30 frames a second, so you won't see it either. But it is actually running at that fast. Okay, and the game still plays at the same speed because it's using delta time. So if I press F here, down here, we can see it. Now you can see it's not like perfect all the time. It's a little bit off, but it's good enough. Whoops. When I try to resume, it just crashed. So this is definitely from the mixer. This OV time seek. Now this is specific to OGG, but these glitches and errors happen in all the file types. So it's not a specific to OGG thing. There's something going on with the way they've implemented playing music in Haskell. And I don't know enough about it to figure it out myself. So, but just aware that it's here, and I have not been able to get. I was using WAV files, and even the WAV files were having problems. So, yeah, that's why there's 3 different versions of the music file there for you to choose which one you want to use. And let's see how fast we can get this to go. And if I were to pause the music, it wouldn't crash. Which is, so it's definitely like in the music problem. So I think I can get up to like 5.5, sort of stable. Okay, I'm going to pause the music so it doesn't crash. Okay. Okay, so I'm getting 4.5. But I'm also streaming from this exact same laptop, so normally I can stably get about like 5.5 to 5.7. Yeah. But let's try it again, and I'll unpause the music. So I have the music paused. If I press space here, this is where it would crash, because the music will stop playing. Then when I go to reset the game, it'll crash. I'm going to unpause it. Oh, I just unpaused it. I just pressed M and it crashed. So yeah. And let's try real quick if I change the audio, the music. I have some different options here. So sorry, this one's all in all different files. Should have load media here. So this one I have winter loop. I was naming them to make sure I knew what was going on. I'll just change this to wave and see if it also crashes. Oh. Sorry about that. Sorry. Oh, okay. You get the idea though, I hope. It really doesn't matter what type of audio file I play. There is some problem, not in the specific audio type, but in the way that it's implemented. And it's way beyond what I could figure out. I'm not an expert Haskell programmer. It's something to do with the binding. And I've not seen this in any other, I've done SDL in Forth and COBOL and Ruby, in Lua, you know, and I've never seen this before. So it's specific to Haskell, even in Rust. Although I think I may have had some audio problems in Rust as well. I can't remember because I haven't played with it in a while. Let me just walk through the code that we had here. I've used the OGG, but you can try out MP3 or Wave. And the sound effects don't seem to matter. They're just OGG. So what we've done in this one is we need to change the title to 8, music, and sound effects. So we've brought in a new qualified module, which is SDL Mixer. And I did set a chunk size here just to hold that value here. So if you want to play with it and change it, you could change it down to 512 or lower, or is it 256? But if you get crackling sounds, that means you've gone too low. We're also kind of making our own audio config right here. From the default audio, we're just changing the audio frequency to 44100. I believe I have tried 4800 just to see if it was part of the error thing, and I just didn't get anywhere with it. But this is the default for SDL, so I'm using that. We have added 2 chunks and 1 music, and they're very similar, just the type is chunk and the type is music for those. In the initialize, we have to do 2 things here. One is we initialize SDL Mixer with the OGG because we want to use OGG files. Again, you can use multiple ones here. This is a list. And we've added, so that's Mixer initialize, and Mixer quit follows that one. We need to open up an audio. And with this, we're using the configuration that we created above and the chunk size that we set above. And we are closing it as well. So when this system shuts down, it's going to be freeing all this memory that's in load media, and then it's going to come to here and it's going to close audio, and then it's going to quit Mixer. So that's going to happen in reverse order. In load media, we go down to the chunks, the sound effects, and it's just Mixer load. That's same for music and for chunks. The chunks are in the sound folder, and it's free to free them. And that again works for both music and chunks. Let's see, we have 2 chunks here. Then we have the music. It's pretty much the same thing, but the music's in the music folder. And you can play around with changing this to OGG or MP3 or Wave, since I've added those 3 files there for you. And again, we've added on the cleanup to halt all channels and to halt the music before we start unloading the chunk or the music, before we start freeing that memory. Okay, so I've just added those in the add clean afterwards. And also here we are starting to play the music. And this is just at the bottom of load media. So the music's playing, it's in a forever loop, and it's done with safe run. And you didn't see it error. It does error when I do it crashes when I press space, but when it does that audio glitching, the screeching sound, it didn't error there. And when the music stops playing when it shouldn't, it also didn't error there. So that's not throwing an exception when that happens. So we've created this play chunk so that we don't try to play a sound effect on a channel that is not available. So we're making sure the channel is available by using the getAvailable function applied to the default group. And that will give us a maybe channel. It's either going to be a just channel or a nothing. So if it is a just channel, we're using that channel name here with play on channel 1 time, the actual chunk that we want to play that we passed in. And this is returning the channel. So we're just using void here. So we don't care about that channel. With nothing, we're just returning, nothing happens. For toggle music, we're just seeing if the music's paused. If it is paused, we're resuming the music. If it's not paused, we're pausing the music. For the toggle music 2, we're seeing if music is actually playing. We don't care about paused or not. We just want to know if it's playing. If it is playing, we're halting it. If it's not playing, we're starting it up again with that same safe run function. So it's like we're completely shutting down the music and starting it back up instead of pausing and resuming. And we've just added in our handle events, we've added the 2 different toggle music approaches. Since the first one was in just an IO context, an IO action, we need to use the lift IO on it, but it's just toggle music. The second one, we actually need to pass in the music to it because we're starting the music back up again. So that's why we're getting that music right here from game data, and we're passing it in here. In text update, we're basically checking to if either x does not equal new x velocity does not equal new x velocity, or if y velocity doesn't equal new y velocity, we know we've bounced. If we've bounced, we want to play the sound effect. So that's what we're doing right there. And that's using our function that we created, the play chunk one, to make sure that it has an available channel. So the other one that I skipped over real quick was in events. We also had another one here where when we're setting the render color, we're actually passing in sound. And we've changed the set render color to have a sound passed in, a chunk. And we're using that same function that we created to play that sound. So it's happening when we press a space bar or when the text bounces off the wall. And if we go down to the game loop here, since we've changed text update to be playing this Haskell sound, we need to pass this in. So this Haskell sound is right here as well. So we can pass it in here. Okay, so that should be everything. Again, sorry that I didn't have the kind of music figured out 100%. I really wanted to have it up and running, but I don't have the answer for it. So if you do have the answer, please share that answer with everybody. And I hope that was educational or entertaining. So that's going to be everything. So thanks for watching and have a nice day. Bye.